the word for hell in verse 4 of 2 Peter.
Tartarus, T-A-R-D-A-R-U-S.
Right. Tartarus is the only place that the Bible mentions where spirits are kept in chains, where they're imprisoned. It says, He delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved unto what? Right. And spared not the old world, but saved Noah the eighth, and so forth. These are the imprisoned spirits that Jesus went to witness to. In Jude, now you see how I'm working context, scope, but this scope is really fabulous, because in order to work this word accurately, I have to remember perhaps about as far as I can remember. This is perhaps one of the most extensive scopes or contexts in the whole Word. I'll show you after a bit. It starts way back in Genesis chapter 1. And so we're now in the book of Jude. And we are in verse 6. And the angels, the spirits, which kept not their first estate, those who did not stay loyal to the Lord God, but left their own habitation, He hath reserved in everlasting chains unto darkness, unto the judgment of the great day. Now the judgment of the great day, I know, is in the book of Revelation, where those great judgments are. Therefore, these imprisoned spirits of verse 19 of Peter, Jesus Christ in His resurrected body, by which He went and witnessed unto those imprisoned spirits who were imprisoned since God placed them in chains at the time of Noah. It says so in verse 20. The imprisoned spirits, or spirits in prison, the spirits which sometimes were disobedient, when once the long-suffering of God waited in the days of Noah while the ark was preparing, wherein few, that is 8 souls, were saved by what? Water. Now, those spirits are in chains. Those specific spirits who were responsible for all the wickedness and, the big overthrow at that time, God put them in chains. That means they're simply bound not to roam the old earth today and hurt people. So when we talk about devil possession, spirit world, that bunch you never have any trouble with. Because God has already, because of what they did, reserved them for future judgment according to the Word. Knowing this from Genesis chapter 1 and 2 and 3, where the serpent really got to Eve, knowing then about their rejection in heaven, and overthrow between 1:1 and 1:2, and that they were booted, then they became the devil spirits, evil spirits. Some of those that were cast out, 1/3 of the spirit world, some of those are the ones that really went to work on Noah and that whole gang of people. And the reason Satan worked so hard is because he knew the promise of 3:15. He knew this. All right. And Satan he knew that God would have to bring this child through a human being. So what does he do? He trips up every human being he can. And he trips up everybody except one man. Who? That's how close he got. That's how close he got. That's why last night when I was teaching some of this stuff in 6, I knew where I was going this morning. I was just getting you ready for this morning. See, I didn't tell them all that, but I knew where I was going. Because it says, it came to pass when men, the man Adam, his progeny, began to multiply. Well, what did they multiply in? Wickedness. Who caused this? That's because he's after God. If he can get everybody to trip out, then God hasn't got anybody to bring that promised seed of Genesis 3:15. So he really worked on them, and he got everybody. And some of you have been in the foundational class. You have that chart that I made up where I showed you how many people there were. Don't you? I tell you, Satan had a good old day, didn't he? He had millions upon millions of people he tripped out. And only one man stood. And how long did he stand? For 120 years, I know, while the ark was preparing, for 120 years he stood alone, and nobody believed but he. Boy, I want to tell you, I understand this imprisoned bit. I understand this 6th chapter and so forth of Genesis, and I understand the greatness of a man standing. Well, now I think you'll appreciate 19 a little more. In his resurrected body, he went down and showed himself to those imprisoned spirits, and he said, here you are, you so and so and so. You tripped up everybody except old Noah, and you thought you were going to beat the true God. But here I am. God raised me from the dead. Here's my spirit body, which is indicative that your head has been injured. That's why God sent him down to the place where the spirits are bound, not where dead people are. No. It's where the spirits were kept, and just those spirits that had so enslaved all of those people and turned them all toward the devil except Noah. They're there. And they're still there, reserved until the day of judgment. To those he went down. He didn't preach to them. He couldn't get them converted, you know. He simply witnessed in his resurrected body that God had what? That's putting that together with what you know about Corinthians. Had Satan known this, he would not have what? That's it. Yeah, see it? When I tie all of that together, this is about the remotest context I knew. Then the whole thing just meshes, and I have an overall beautiful enjoyment of the picture that God sets in His Word, which sometimes we're disobedient, which some time ago, years ago, we're disobedient. When once the long-suffering of God waited, He sure waited in the days of Noah. While the ark is preparing, we're in few that his 8 souls were saved by what? How the poor Baptist can use this for immersion, I just for the life of me. Isn't that pitiful? It's really pitiful. Because they use 21 with it, saying the like figure, which also baptism does also now save us. Not water baptism, but what? Christ in you, the hope of glory. Baptized in the name. What He is in you is the guarantee that if you suffer for righteousness' sake, if you got killed for righteousness' sake, you would be where? In the gathering together, don't you see it? That's why it's better to suffer for righteousness' sake than evil, because they suffered for evil and they're held in chains. That's why it's set in that context. Isn't that beautiful? that's why it's better for us to suffer, even to die for righteousness' sake, because we have baptized with His presence, not water,